I'm Malcolm van Delst, and this is an excerpt from the 9-Year-Old CEO. Last week, the game dev team wondered why there were only 2 stones listed in a list titled The 6 Stones, among other inconsistencies in the game Bible. They wondered what they were supposed to do with something called grameat. This is a continuation of the chapter Grameat. Meena laughed, then called Arduino. Hi, Meena. Arduino picked up on the first ring. Hi, said Meena. How are you? Great. Glad to have gotten the Bible to you guys. Is it making enough sense to work with? She laughed. It's fresh, Meena quipped, and both women laughed again. Anyway, I wanted to ask you about the section that starts grameat. Ah, yes, Arduino chuckled. She sat in her black sweats in her underground bunker, graphs and numbers changing and blinking on the 6 large screens that loomed up and half surrounded her. She stood up from her desk and moved to an old black couch. As she sat, she thought for the umpteenth time, we really need to replace this thing, or at least vacuum it. She coughed as the dust escaped the upholstery, like it did any time someone sat on it. Are you okay? What? Oh, yes, just some dust, said Arduino, sniffling and leaning back into the cushions. Nonetheless, the sofa was extraordinarily comfortable. Arduino had spent many a night pulling the sleeping bag that rested on the far arm over herself and slumbering there. Anyway, let me guess, you have no idea what's going on with that material. Meena could hear the grin in Arduino's words. That's right, she laughed. What's it all about? Can you incorporate those ideas in images? They're Sulien's. I thought as much, said Meena. Should I call him? Ugh, said Arduino. He's prepping another video for his YouTube channel and doing artwork for Crash. Is there anything I can help you with? I don't want to distract him. Maybe you can write some ideas for including those concepts in the game and run them by me. And then I can run them by Sulien later. Okay, said Meena, doodling an evil elf face on the page. I'll call you back if I need to. Absolutely. Meena heard swish as Arduino rose from the couch, but had not the slightest inkling of where Arduino was, and never would. Thanks, said Meena. We're having fun over here, by the way. These kids are something else. Arduino laughed. Well, let's see if we can keep the investors happy. Said Meena. Oh, do you have the turtle notes? Arduino asked. I think I forgot to include them in the Bible. Yes, we have the turtles, Meena said. They're awesome. I have some notes, though. I'll add them to the wiki in a bit. They're more of Sulien's ideas. They can either fly out of the eggs or be one of the rewards at the end of the 100 lucky coin path. Actually, that would work best. The reward, I mean. Turtles equals 100 lucky coin reward, Meena said as she jotted the note above the evil elf's head. Movement on one of her screens caught Arduino's eye. Hey, Meena, I gotta go. Talk soon, okay? Aye, aye, said Meena. Next chapter. Beowulf and Arduino dressed like hobos. Beowulf and Arduino, dressed like hobos, creeped around the edge. No. Beowulf and Arduino, dressed in expensive business attire, Arduino in a form-fitting Xiao Yang suit and Beowulf in Hickey Freeman, creeped around the dirty, trash-strewn edge of a building. They both wore angst moccasins, the most businessy-looking sneakwear they could find. They're impressive, Arduino had said when they tried the shoes on, again having bought with Monero and shipped to a P.O. box that they canceled immediately after taking possession of the order. She stood and raced across Beowulf's office. Dead silent, Beowulf had quipped. The company's slogan was dead silent, stylized to be all one word with a period separating the 2 actual words, and capital letters on the dead and silent. It's funny how commercial interests change grammar, Beowulf mused. Arduino nodded. Through her dark web snooping, she'd located the child traders that had Sulien and initiated contact. Sulien, she suspected, was in Suite 503 of a brutalist office building on Game On Street, which is where they now stood. Ready? Arduino asked Beowulf, who nodded. They got into character, rounded the building's corner, and once at the door, Arduino pushed a button. Maximilian Corporation, came a voice. And Devant here regarding the pizza NFTs, Arduino replied crisply. The door buzzed open, and she and Beowulf entered a locked glass enclosure. She glanced at Beowulf, who looked sheepishly up at her, playing his part of submissive, cowed underling. Slave, in fact, even though he was dressed extravagantly. On the other side of the enclosure, 2 hulking men in suits, Arduino couldn't help but note that weren't as expensive as theirs, held AK-47s. She nodded at the men. The child will enter first, the same female voice that had announced the company at the door said. We will search him. Then you will enter. Arduino shoved Beowulf forward. This isn't working. This frightened kid thing. The idea was that Arduino and Beowulf would pretend to be buying Sulien for his art skills and nimble fingers, that Arduino was an art forger who bought talented kids and put them to work, and that Beowulf, as one of those kids, was going to oversee Sulien, which is why he was with her. That Arduino wouldn't want to buy Sulien if it didn't seem that the two boys could get along. Let me try again. And Devant here regarding the pizza NFTs, Arduino crisply replied. The door buzzed open, and she and Beowulf entered a locked glass enclosure. They glanced at each other as if they bought children on the regular and weren't the least bit nervous. The child will enter first, the same female voice that had announced the company at the door said. We will search him, then you will enter. Beowulf looked beyond the enclosure to the two massive men growling at them. Their suits are not as expensive as ours, Arduino noted. They each held an AK-47, though. Beowulf nodded at the men to indicate he was ready. The larger of the two, the one with a jaguar neck tattoo, stepped forward as the door clicked open. A few minutes later, Arduino and Beowulf were upstairs in Suite 503. When he saw Sulien, Beowulf stared cold and hard at him, half trying to maintain his own composure and half willing his baby brother into silence. It wouldn't work if Beowulf showed any indication that he knew Sulien, or worse, if Sulien called out Beowulf and ran towards his beloved brother. The child is sedated, said the Margaret Thatcher-looking woman who hadn't managed to talk the original child traders down from their $500,000 price tag for Sulien. She bought him anyway, knowing his value. Let me see his work, Beowulf commanded. He was supposed to be a child art forger owned by Arduino, who was looking for another talented kid to work with Adolf, as she called Beowulf. Margaret Thatcher raised her eyebrows and pointed to a pile of Sulien's work. Arduino rushed to grab and inspect them. She smiled coldly, then showed them to Beowulf, who sniffed as he leafed through. He'll do. I can whip him into shape, he intoned, the corners of his mouth curling. Meanwhile, Sulien stared forward in confusion and almost fell over. Beowulf looked down to hide the fear that momentarily crossed his eyes. Composed, he looked back up at Anna/Arduino. Don't we need to get back to work? If I'm training this, he turned toward Sulien. Prodigy, he sneered. My time is going to be more precious than it is already. Fine, said Anna. She turned to Margaret Thatcher. Here's your 700,000, she said, pulling a large envelope from her purse. It's all there. Do you want to count it? I trust you, sniggered Margaret, taking the envelope. Geoffrey, she called, not to the man with the jaguar tattoo, but the other. Grab the stroller and place the child in it. Sulien whimpered and tried to pound Geoffrey's chest when the man picked him up, but instead his head fell back and his arms fell leadenly to his sides. Once I CRISPR his DNA and capture his sperm, Arduino said to Margaret, working hard to keep the trembling panic out of her voice, along with the work he'll do with Adolf, I'll more than recoup your price. Beowulf stepped forward to push the stroller. Good, Margaret Thatcher snapped. Tell your friends, we only provide the best children. I'll do that, said Arduino, as she, Beowulf, and Sulien left the office, escorted by the men with machine guns.